living in an apartment across town. And we can't deny that. Certain things did happen. Now, this girl also had other people in her life. She had, another player on the one of the rival teams. She had some other people that I knew, but basically, it's one quick thing's a 1 week thing. She went her way, I went my way. Eventually, my wife and myself, we got back together, and I don't hear from this girl for months. I mean, many, many months. All of a sudden, it comes up to my restaurant. I have a letter in my restaurant I happen to see saying that she wants to have a meeting with me. I meet with her. She says she was pregnant. In the last months of pregnancy, she claimed me as a father. All the stuff I knew about her, and I found out that she was married and everything. But she said her husband was sterile, couldn't have kids. So, and she was claiming it would be was my kid, and I didn't believe it, so I completely blew it off. Pretty much. It wasn't until about a month or so ago when I get a letter at my restaurant again stating that they want to do a child support package, that in order to, I guess, to keep the press out of it, she wanted $1,000 a week, a house, and all this. And this is when I decided, hey, no, I'm not doing anything. I'm going to have me a blood test done, because I really didn't believe it to be my child in the first place. I'm going to have a blood test done, and I pay for it myself. And we're still in the process right now of analyzing that blood test. We got people in New York right now working on analyzing that blood test. I think this is basically, if I am eventually determined to be the father of that child, I will support that child. There's no problem in that. I will support it. If I'm determined at the end to be the father of the child, I will support it. But I'm not going to be held hostage by some woman, her husband, and some hotshot lawyer trying for some get-rich scheme. I'm not going to be held hostage for that. And I think that's basically in this story with current affair, and basically what they're trying to do right now is trying to put themselves in a better light, trying to not to look like a bunch of money hungry people trying to get rich and attacking me. Now, like I said, if I am determined in the end to be the father of that child, I will support it.
How long is it going to be, do you think, before they come up with the test results?
Well, they have theirs. We will get our final results for Monday for some analyzing. The guy in New York is analyzing the thing.
Lawrence, I didn't see the current affair report, and I don't know if you saw. We had a report. Richard Johnson read something which he talked to her. So you're not denying that you had relations with the woman. You're now just questioning whether the child's yours. Is that correct?
I'm questioning whether the child is mine. No, it's a fact that yes, I did know the girl. All right, and we're talking about something that happened 15 months ago when I was separated and living on my own. Something that happened in a span of like 8 days.
You have in fact been filed with paternity suit by her. Is there a court case Wednesday, as has been reported?
There's supposed to be some type of hearing on Wednesday.
Hearing?
I mean, they know this. This is why the story. That's why they bring out the story. And the thing it was a threat to me. Like, if you don't go with our plan, then we're going to make it public.
Is that why you think they went public?
That's exactly why they went. Well, I'm not going to say why they go. Who knows why? But that's what I believe.
LT, on the eve of what happened to Magic Johnson, are you thinking back now that it would have been safer to use some sort of protection, that this wouldn't have come up in the first place?
Good question, though.
It's a great question. I'm quite sure. Let me tell you something. On the eve of what happened to Magic Johnson, you got a lot of people thinking. It's one of the things that's very unfortunate, but it puts a lot of thought in a lot of people's mind, especially mine, a lot of people in general, that it can happen to anybody. This was unsafe.
Or pro athletes, just to take it into the bigger picture for a while.
Mhm.
Pro athletes, do you think they're more vulnerable to this kind of thing with women coming onto them, basically wherever you go?
Always, it's always. You know, a lot of people ask, well, why did I take the blood test?
I'm sorry.
Of course, it's going to be vulnerable. And people ask, well, why did I take the blood test? Well, I wasn't going to be held hostage. Somebody said, well, we want this and this just to keep quiet about it. Well, first of all, I know at the same time I was in the picture, so was other people also, and I found out later. So the chances of being my child, as I thought, was slim and none. And so I wanted to take the test and know for sure. And like I said, this is a thing that happens to a lot of different people, and it's unfortunate. But we're not living in a sin-free world. Some people, we sometimes make mistakes and we do certain things, and it's unfortunate that our past sometimes has to we have to pay for our past. The present.
Where were you living at that time?
I was living down Route 3 at an apartment complex.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Your family been supportive now?
Yeah, of course. It's rough on them. Of course, it's rough. It's embarrassing and everything. But hey, I'll push through it and I'll work and I'll see what happens. But by no means am I just blowing this off and taking the position of being arrogant about it. No, by no means. But I don't want them to come across like they're just innocent bystanders in this situation. No, it happens every day. It's employed by millions of people, and by a lot of people trying to get something. And I tell you the truth. I am going to, if it's determined in the end that I am the father of the child, I will do what's in the best interest of that child.
Lawrence, according to a story, her lawyer says their tests are in, the probability is 99.99% that you are the child, based on their blood test. Now, wouldn't you have had to have submitted blood for their tests to be done?
Well,
how can they
can get their results back before I get mine. Simply because my lawyer's been out of town. When my lawyer gets the results, we take it to. Our results are coming from the New Yorkers. When we get our results, we send them in to be double checked and all this stuff that's on this, and I get it back. I know I get it back on Monday.
Okay, but their tests, what I'm asking, because I'm not
I don't know what their test is.
But do their tests have your blood? Is your blood
I would
tested?
think so. But I don't know what the test is. I'm not going to acknowledge the test. I'm not dealing with them. I'm dealing with my own.
But they did get blood from you for their tests, is what I'm saying. You had to, obviously you had to submit.
Yes.
Okay.
So other pro athletes don't have to go through this. Do you think is there any way for teams to counsel guys to just say, look, this is going to happen, this could happen, you're a vulnerable target because you're a pro athlete, and a good-looking pro athlete, not available, but just with the women all around. Is there something that can be done to...
Well, I don't know if you can say it's counseling. You can do it. It's one of those things that do happen. It doesn't just happen as a pro athlete. It happens as a sports writer. I'm quite sure maybe now and then one of you guys might, find something happening. So it happens to everybody, and it's not something you can make light of. It's a very serious situation, and fatherhood is always is. But it's happened before, and it'll go on. It won't be the last case you hear of this.
Obviously, it's not an amicable situation right now between you and the woman. Would this preclude you from having a relationship with the boy if it turns out to be your son, other than just the financial relationship?
Well, see, I'm really not going to go into all that, what's going to happen down the line. Right now, I'll tell you, my main thing is to try to get my family back in order. Pretty much, like I said, it's something that happened a while back ago when I was separated, and it's shameful that it followed me, all the way down the line. So
You know, you've always been your own man ever since you came into the league, and you've never liked to be contrite in front of the press. How hard is it for you to come here and talk to us like this?
Well, it was not a question of how hard it is. I just in the program that was on TV, it didn't give, it got me there on false pretenses. It didn't let me know what was going on. It asked me questions pertaining to something totally different, and then, they air that on TV and put my answers to different questions. So that doesn't give me a chance to defend myself. That's all, even though I may not like this and like that and like this, I've always had the opportunity to defend myself on anything I've ever done, and I didn't have a chance to defend myself there.
One quick one here.
Last question.
Yeah, if I heard you correct answering Barry, you said Monday you're going to get your test results back. Is that what you said?
I'm getting my official
Right.
test results back.
Okay, if that's the case, then why not just wait till Monday and come out and tell us? Why'd you feel the need to come this morning?
Because it's a long week. We're going out of town. It has already hit anyway. See, I would think that's the number one thing they had working on their side, is that the fear of it getting out. All right, it's out of the closet now, so to speak. It makes me feel a little bit better, pretty much. Now, we just sit back and now we'll wait and see what happens. But like I said, if it turns out to be the way they say it is, then I will do what's according.
Has it affected your play?
Has it affected
this
my
weighing
play?
on your mind?
Well, you only worry about it, so to speak, how it's going to affect your family life, But it's out. There's nothing I can do about it now, as far as the me attention is going to get. I'm just now can just say, let it take its toll, and get back to work.
Is
And
your
that's what I'm
family
doing.
life okay now? How would you describe how?
Oh, I'm not going to get into all that. I think that's not the issue here. The issue is strictly the child, pretty much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Waive the following players: Brownlee, Thaxton. Everybody got it?
Move to the microphone.
Brownlee, Thaxton, McLean, Godfrey, Hardison, Lasker, and Stacy Robinson. We placed the four following players on injured reserve: Chapang, Arieh, Lilly, and Rutledge. And the commissioner has issued a statement that Lawrence Taylor will be placed, has been notified that he'll be placed on non-football illness for a period of a minimum of 30 days. And he'll be in that category, and that reduces our squad to the 47th.
Do you have any further comment on the latter part of your statement?
No, other than obviously it's a blow to our team, but the Giants organization is supportive of the league drug policy, and anything that we can do to support the efforts to alleviate it, the problems that are quite apparent in the league, we certainly will do our part.
You get close to the mic.
Have you spoken to Lawrence Taylor since the announcement, or just before the announcement about the...
I've spoken to Lawrence Taylor today, yes I have.
What was his response?
That's a personal conversation. Not going to address that issue.
Is he disappointed?
I can't speak for what his reaction is.
Are you disappointed in him?
I'm not going to address that either.
Can you address what impact it's going to have on your football team?
Well, obviously, when you lose a player of that nature, it's going to have an effect. But, that same player could have been hurt on the first play of practice on Wednesday. And, you have to be able to adjust to those situations in this business. Unfortunately, we're going to have to do that.
Bill, are you surprised
Am I surprised?
that this happened to Lawrence Taylor?
Quite frankly, I'm a little bit surprised, yes.
Why is that?
Well, because you don't expect those kind of things.
You thought he had the problem handled?
Oh, I had every reason to believe that things were in pretty good shape.
What about the 30-day suspension? Is this going to help him, or is he going to feel his back is up against the wall?
I don't have any idea other than this is the directive and this is the league drug policy for people that are second-time offenders, and all the players on the team are aware that that policy is in existence.
You're concerned about the image for the team?
Certainly. Sure am.
Did this come down after Friday night? Was there any testing?
I'll just say that the testing was recent. I won't document what it was.
Were there any signs that he was having a relapse?
No,
Do you choose when the testing is done? Does the team choose?
no.
Bill, if you look at the Manly thing, he gets tested before the season. He misses the first 4 exhibition games. LT misses the first 4 games of the season. Is there any fairness in that?
Well, it's they can't do everything at once to everybody, and they have to do it when teams report to camp different times. They have their veterans in at different times, and the league has a problem in structuring all those different things. But we were aware of when the testing was going to be, and or we had an idea, and all the players in the league knew that it was forthcoming this year during the course of training camp, as it was last year.
You
Have
seem
you
to
talked to
sound
other
a
people
little
on the team?
matter-of-factly about this. Are you the least bit angry at him? And when you found out
No,
about
I'm not angry. No, I'm not angry.
Bill,
How would you describe how you're feeling now?
I feel like a coach that's trying to get his team ready to play the Washington Redskins. I don't feel any different.
Have you talked to the other players? Do they know about the situation?
Yes, they do.
Do they have any reaction?
No.
Coach, how concerned are you about the team feeling let down about this at this point of the season, getting ready for the first game?
Well, I think that's my job to provide the right leadership and direction to the team, and in the past they've seemed to respond to that, and I'll have to do a good job with it.
You said the players knew that the testing was coming. What does it say for Lawrence Taylor if he knew it was coming and he still?
Every player in the league knew that there was going to be testing this summer. Every player in the league.
Bill, is this the only test of the year that the league?
I'm sorry, Mike.
Is this the only test of the year that the league conducts? Is it a one-test thing for the league?
No, you'd have to read the league drug policy, Mike, as to that.
So you don't know, there could have been another one at some other point.
Yeah, I'm sure that there could be.
So when did you become aware that this was coming then?
Well, I had an idea, Hank, that there could be a problem on Saturday afternoon. However, I didn't know conclusively at that point in time, nor till very early today, what basically probably was going to happen.
Warren Wells.
Now, the statement I think the commissioner has just issued, is it, Ed?
Yeah.
I don't know what time that came out. 11:30. Well,
Does the statement indicate whether or not salary will definitely be docked?
it doesn't address that issue, no.
Will the salary be docked?
We're not going to address that issue at either.
Do you
Is
think
it likely
LT?
to be?
Do you think LT?
I just said I wasn't going to address the issue.
Do you think LT let the team down, betrayed the team, the organization, you personally?
I don't have any comment on that.
Bill, clear up the semantics problem, please. You said when you announced this that he was put on a 30-day non-football illness
Right,
status.
right.
That's a hell of a lot different than a suspension.
Well, it's not. He's been informed of that. I don't know whether you would. I think it is semantics is what you're talking about. But that's the category that he is in. No, I didn't use the word suspension.
No, somebody else did, and that's what I'm trying to clear up.
I just used the word non-football illness for a period of 30 days, and that's what it is.
Is it a suspension?
Doesn't say it.
There's the statement. Why don't you read it?
Will he be undergoing rehabilitation, or will he be on his own wandering around for 30 days?
That will be determined by the National Football League drug advisor.
What would you suggest?
I don't have a suggestion. I'm not the National Football League drug advisor. I'm the coach.
Who's your player?
Well, what does that have to do with it? I'm not a doctor.
Relationship with?
I know, but I'm not qualified in that. I don't have any area of expertise. Would you want me sending you to a doctor?
If you were my friend, I might listen to your conversation about it.
Well, that's all well and good, but you wouldn't consider me an expert in that area, would you?
Bill, you've always had a very tough drug to stand here.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have this guy who's obviously done it twice.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that be hard for you to take him back?
I'm not going to comment on that. These things are now in the control of the National Football League and their policy. So we're part of the league, and we have to support and adhere to the policy, and that's what we'll do.
Bill, was it a one-time relapse, or do you think it was ongoing type situation?
I don't have any idea.
Bill, at this point on the field, have you decided what you're going to do in his absence, or do you just not know yet because of the earliness of the week?
No, I know what we're going to do, but we're not going to start working on it basically until Wednesday, so I'll let you know Wednesday.
Is Banks coming in today?
I have no knowledge of that.
Is that deal done yet, the Banks deal?
I have no knowledge that it is, no.
Is it likely to be today?
I don't have a crystal ball either.
What was your reaction when you found out about the drug thing?
Not what?
What was your reaction when they first informed you that there was a relapse?
Well, I didn't use the term relapse. I don't have any reaction. I just deal with the facts.
Well, when you were informed that you lost Lawrence Taylor for 30 days, what was your reaction?
Started thinking about what the contingencies are.
What about you as a friend of his?
I just started thinking about what the contingencies are.
You never thought about him as a man, as yourself as a man, take away the fact that you're his coach, his friend, right?
Well, I think my thoughts are personal, and I just like to keep them to myself.
As a previous drug offender, could he be tested randomly at any other time, or was it strictly one time for him as well?
You'll have to read the NFL drug policy on that.
So you said minimum 30. Is there a possibility it could be longer?
I haven't been informed.
Are you anticipating right now that he probably would be available to play in the 15th season?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Will he be allowed to be with the team at any point?
No, he won't.
What does that do for your season?
What do you mean?
What effect will it have on your overall season?
I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have any idea. Do the best we can.
Bill,
We had a very good preseason.
Is it a situation where you feel you got knocked down even before the bell begins?
No. There's a lot of things you have to overcome in this. You learn to attempt to do that.
Bill, everybody who plays here knows pretty well how you feel about this subject, and how vigilantly you try to educate blah blah blah. And in that context, considering his history and him knowing the way you feel, do you believe that obviously this problem is more serious maybe than anybody ever wanted to believe, even with his first time offense?
Again, Mike, I don't think I have the degree of expertise. Although I've tried to acquire over the last 6 years a working knowledge, I don't think I'm really qualified to comment on degrees of any individual's problems. I really am not. And so I'd be reluctant to do so.
What does this say about his responsibility to the team and to you?
Look, this is an illness, and I don't know whether you can group those things together. You know, I think people that have problems, I don't know that you can put those two things, tie them together.
Can you tell us, Bill, what he tested positive for?
No, I can't. It's just, what I will say is it's substance abuse.
Was it cocaine?
Substance abuse is the word. Okay?
Same substance he abused the last time.
I'm not going to address that issue.
Have you lost faith in him as a person?
No. Anything else, fellas?
Thank you.
Okay, now let me instruct you people as to what's going to happen here today. The locker room will be available to you from 12 to 12:30. I will not permit any cameras on the practice field today. The locker room will also be open after practice for a designated period of time, which is our normal thing.
Bill, can you go through that list again? IR,
Chapang, Lilly, Arié, and Rutledge are on IR. He has a knee strain.
For our first focus tonight, we look at professional football and drugs. He's called LT, number 56, the NFL's most valuable player last season, the New York Giants' $1 million linebacker. But yesterday, Lawrence Taylor was sidelined before the season has even begun. The reason? Drugs. It was Taylor's second suspension for substance abuse in the last 2 years. His team had this reaction.
Obviously, it's a blow to our team, but the Giants organization is supportive of the league drug policy, and anything that we can do to support the efforts to alleviate it, the problems that are quite apparent in the league, we certainly will do our part.
Taylor was the 9th player to be sidelined for drugs in the preseason. 8 others, including Dexter Manley of the Washington Redskins, failed routine drug tests. The NFL, as well as other professional sports, has a drug program which involves random testing and some rehabilitation therapy. So are these suspensions examples of the failure or success of these programs? Or are people like Lawrence Taylor, who's acknowledged that he was a cocaine addict, simply uncontrollable? In the title of his autobiography, Taylor said he enjoyed living on the edge. Here to talk about drugs in professional football and what the teams should or can do about it are Jan Van Duzer, Director of Operations for the National Football League, someone who helped draw up the NFL's drug program. Harry Edwards, a sociologist from the University of California at Berkeley and special assistant to the baseball commissioner, as well as a consultant to other professional teams, including the NFL's San Francisco 49ers. He joins us from San Francisco. Jill Lieber is a staff writer for Sports Illustrated magazine, who wrote a cover story on Lawrence Taylor last year. And Ira Burko is a New York Times sports columnist and author of the recent book, Pitchers Do Get Lonely. Mr. Van Duzer, does the NFL think this suspension and the others this summer mean that this new system is working?
Well, we think it's working. We don't take any joy in these recent sidelinings of players, but yes, we think it's working. Because now we've got 3 years of testing behind us, and we're now coming to the point where players who have had step 1 in our so-called 3-step progression have now reached step 2, and there is a requirement that they sit down for 30 days.
Yeah. What happens to Taylor during the 30-day suspension now?
That will be up to the doctors. They will decide whether
Your
he needs,
doctors or the Giants doctors?
Our drug advisor, jointly with the Giants doctors, will decide whether he needs inpatient or outpatient treatment. He'll be tested and he'll get appropriate treatment.
Why do you not say what substance he tested positive for? I mean, it seems to be common knowledge that it was cocaine based on his previous testing, but why don't you say what it is?
Well, we're trying to protect confidentiality as much as we can. That's the main reason. He has acknowledged cocaine use in the past. There's no question about that.
I see. Harry Edwards, do you think this shows that the policy is working?
Well, I think, first of all, many of us who've been arguing for more stringent drug policies in professional athletics over the last decade or so applaud the NFL's efforts in this regard. I think that it's a new program. It's one that has many developmental problems and some fine-tuning that most certainly is necessary. I think it's working to the extent that various complexities have been anticipated. I think, for example, that there are great inequities in this situation. For example, Lawrence Taylor stands to lose over $62,000 a year if the team chooses to not pay him, whereas individuals who were caught earlier lose $62,000 a week, as opposed to $500 a week if they were caught earlier.
You mean because of the timing of his testing in August, just before the preseason, rather than in July when the other 8 were tested?
Precisely.
Let me just ask Mr. Van Duzer, what was responsible for that timing? It's been raised by a number of people.
Right. The testing is done by SmithKline Laboratories, and it is done to accommodate the schedule of the club. The club tells us when they can test within a given period in the preseason period, and we accommodate the club's schedule.
So the club chose the timing in this case. The Giants chose the timing.
In effect, we accommodated their timing.
Yeah. Mr. Edwards?
Yes, that's something I think that really should be coordinated. I think also there's also the problem of the equity with which all drugs are treated. Someone who has had an altercation or driving problem involving alcohol, someone with a minimal residue of marijuana in their system is treated the same as someone who may be snorting up the Grand Canyon in terms of cocaine. That, too, creates problems. It creates what is essentially seen by many individuals as a bad rule, and a bad rule generates contempt for rules in general, and that exacerbates the problem. So I think that that's another fine-tuning area that really should be dealt with. And while their anonymity in terms of the drug involved is all well and good, it also lumps everybody under the same umbrella. The alcohol-related problem with the cocaine-related problem, and that's not a good situation.
You mean he could have been found to have drunk a few beers, and that showed up in the test, but everybody assumes it's cocaine because of the previous finding?
That's precisely what I'm saying, that he would be at step 2, irrespective of the drug violation involved. Also, I think we have to...
Let me ask Mr. Van Duzer, is that right? Or would it have to be for the same one? Would he go to step 2 if it were something different or something less serious than cocaine?
If it were a prohibited substance, alcohol at a high level, cocaine, marijuana, then he would move to step 2 in most cases. The commissioner has some prerogative in this area to take into account what Mr. Edwards is talking about. What I can tell you here is that we have the same substance involved multiple times.
Yeah. So we're talking about cocaine.
I can't give you the...
I see. Mr. Edwards,
let me say one final thing, which I think is perhaps the most grievous problem with this whole system, as much as I applaud it and the effort that's involved here, is that it removes all incentive, really, for individuals to step forward and admit that they have a problem and get treatment within the context of the individual franchise, because that would have to be reported to the NFL office, and this individual would find himself at step 1, step 2, or even step 3, where he's suspended for a year. It also removes incentive for the individual franchise to deal effectively with problems. They literally have to wait until the individual is caught, because if they suspect that an individual has a problem and they want to get treatment for this individual within the context of the family there, the team, the organization, they have to report it. And this individual could go to step 2. They could wind up losing that athlete, and that's between a rock and a hard spot, to let him go ahead down the road toward drug abuse and perhaps even death, as in the Lynn Bias case, or to turn him in and perhaps lose him for the season or lose him for 30 days.
Let's bring in our sports writers here. Ira Burko of the New York Times is that right, that this new system has removed any incentive the team would have for dealing with a problem within the team?
Would it have any incentive as far as the team is concerned?
Because anything discovered would have to be reported to the NFL now.
Well, it would seem so. I think that from what I've seen of the NFL's program, it is kind of mealy-mouthed, and I guess kind of a sort of mealy-mouthed in its way, but it seems mealy-mouthed to me. The system that I like and that seems to have worked is the one that the National Basketball Association has, and that is that if somebody comes forward and says that he has a problem, then he's dealt with in a way that that the NFL doesn't deal with the problem. If he is caught on his own, somebody else comes and finds out that he is dealing in drugs, he is thrown out of the league for at least 2 years. It seems that this is an incentive for everybody to stop taking the cocaine and have integrity in the league as well as the players are concerned.
Whereas this one gives the player too many chances. You mean he gets 3 strikes before he gets suspended for a year?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's your feeling about it, Joe?
Well, my question was, I wasn't surprised that he was caught. My question is, why didn't the Giants know this was coming? I really wonder how much they were testing him and if they really cared to test him. He went into rehab in, I guess, 1986. He's a time bomb waiting to go off. They had to know when the NFL was going to come test him if he was doing cocaine again that he'd get caught and he'd be gone. He's $1 million investment for the Giants, and I think that they should know where he is, know what he's doing. They should have kept closer tabs on him.
Well, do you agree with the point Harry Edwards has made that it's now a disincentive for the team to test or to know, and they might be inclined to look the other way now?
Well, I remember a couple years ago when I was checking around the league to find out what the different team drug policies were. There were teams that weren't testing at all for anything. So the question is, and I don't know what the Giants were doing. I mean, the question has to be, did they do anything? Had they been testing him?
Robin, historically, the football teams, and I guess even the basketball and the baseball teams, when nobody was watching, historically, they would take all their problems and try to sweep them under the rug so they wouldn't tell the public. And at one point, especially in the NFL, when they had these greenies and various pep pills, the players were doing almost anything they wanted. The league knew what was going on, but decided to turn their back to it. Finally, when it was exposed, then they decided we're going to do something with it. I think the same thing has been true of the cocaine problem. Finally, after a lot of pressure by the public on the teams, now they decide to do something about it, and then even slowly. So the teams, there's always been a disincentive for teams to expose.
Why do you reply to the point that there isn't an incentive for a team like the Giants to go looking itself now or to find a problem? Because, as Harry Edwards said, it would all have to go to you and therefore be made public the second time.
We think just the opposite. We think that the events of the last month have galvanized teams into being much more interested in their drug problems because they realize they might lose players from their rosters. On Harry Edwards' comment, the first time that a player comes forward or the first time that he tests positive is not reported to the league office. It's reported to our drug advisor. We don't know about it. Pete Rozelle doesn't know about it. He does not become involved until step 2, when it requires removal from the roster.
Yes, but do you understand the point being that irrespective of whether or not you are made aware at that first step is there. That is step 1. Each subsequent problem becomes even more of a disincentive. If you're going to have a player step forward and you know that that's going to be step 1, there's a tremendous disincentive for that player not to do that, because the next step, he's gone for 30 days. If he's already at step 2, then the next step, he's out for a year. So at some point, there must be a refining of this situation so that it is handled in a way that keeps the process within some kind of relationship to the actual transgression rather than this categorical kind of thing.
Well, are you arguing, Harry Edwards, that the system worked better when it was up to the teams only?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that we cannot swing from that extreme where the problem was winked at to an extreme where everyone is handled categorically and systematically and rigidly, and that there is not any individuality in terms of the handling of the situation. We must begin to look at each individual case, and within that context to make a judgment appropriate to the case. If an individual refuses to come forward, is utterly intransigent about his problem, is in a state of utter denial and so forth, then of course different actions have to be taken than with an individual who has a problem, who is looking for treatment, who may have some difficulty in that regard, and steps forward to get treatment and to get treated fairly with regard to that problem. That has to be handled entirely differently.
Mr. Van Duzer, do you expect the teams to continue testing on their own in between, for their own information, in between times when you test? Are they supposed to be doing that now?
We have now taken over the reasonable cause testing program as well, so that it's uniform. We send in our own collectors that it's sent to a central lab under the direction of our drug advisor, and all of the teams are in that same program.
Yeah.
So we don't depend on the team deciding that, well, we've got a very important opponent to play this week, or this is a very important player and we don't want bad news that we might otherwise get if we tested. We do the testing.
Well, where is the incentive then for a team, for teammates, for instance, of famous and absolutely indispensable stars like Taylor? Where is the incentive now for them to help the guy, or to notice what he's doing, or to come forward to the team or anything? Is there any?
Well, what I was surprised about was yesterday when the cameras went into the Giants locker room and asked players, what do you think about this? Joe Morris, Phil Simms said, well, we were told not to talk about it. Now, I don't say that Phil Simms should come out and say, I'm disappointed in this guy, he's let us down. But this team had a chance to be in the Super Bowl. And I really wish that some of these players, instead of being quiet, sitting on their hands, I wish we could find out who the leaders are on this team so they could come forth and say, we're disgusted, you're selfish, look what you've done to us. And maybe that would shock him a little bit. There's another point that I
You don't think that Lawrence Taylor is shocked by this?
No, because Lawrence Taylor thinks he has a bulletproof vest on. He thinks he can drive as fast as he wants to. He thinks he can drink as much as he wants to. He thinks he can do as many drugs as he wants to. He boasted about it in his book, Living on the Edge. That's the whole thing, is that he tries to go as far as he can before he's caught. And up until this point, I'm sure he thought, I am Lawrence Taylor. I'm the highest paid defensive player in the league, and no one is going to apply their rules to me.
Do you read Lawrence Taylor that way?
Absolutely. I think that he feels that the rules don't apply to me. Whatever the reasons are, perhaps going all the way back to a grade school when he was always told that he was a superior human being because he could run fast and jump high and that kind of thing. And maybe along the way he's just, this has been fed into him more and more, and suddenly he is just this great person making $1 million a year and can do anything he wants. He talks about driving 100, 130 miles an hour down highways drunk, or having drunk, or having taken cocaine. And he was asked, what if you what if you hit somebody or ram into a bunch of people? And he said, if I don't care about myself, how could I care about other people?
Do you read Lawrence Taylor that way, Harry Edwards?
No, I don't. I think that we run a tremendous risk, particularly when it's a superstar athlete, of losing the forest in a single tree. We have a situation here where there have been 8 individuals who've been suspended as a result of this kind of problem in the NFL. The only one that we have had a program on is Lawrence Taylor, and that's because...
What do you mean have a program on?
Well, I mean, he's the only one that has drawn this kind of attention that we have now in the media, and that's because he's a superstar. As far as the comments and so forth in his book, I'm always leery of as told to books because it's difficult to separate out the human being from the sensationalistic efforts of the writer who may be putting that kind of material in for marketability. I don't know anything about the Lawrence Taylor case, but I've known of enough cases to be suspicious of that kind of thing.
The
NFL's problem is the fact that we are now fishing out of a pool that is drug saturated. We live in a society that consumes more drugs in greater variety than any society on the face of this earth. And we must begin to deal with the reality that this problem is not going to go away. The fact that it is Lawrence Taylor does not diminish at all the true nature of the problem. And I think it's a mistake really to focus on him irrespective of his psychiatric or sociological orientation
Is the NFL singling him out because he's such a great star, one of the greatest football players ever?
He's been treated just like every other player.
That's right. I agree with that. I think the media, however, is singling him.
Are the media making a scapegoat or making a special case of him because of his stardom? I mean, are you both landing on him hard and your colleagues because of this?
Well, Lawrence Taylor is news. He may or may not be any different as a human being from some of the other people. I guess he is not. But the others in football have also had experiences along the lines of Lawrence Taylor. They were all great athletes themselves all the way through. It's also true that there are people in drugs, people who have enormous egos, who have never picked up a football in their lives. Harry is correct along those lines. But here you have, in some ways, an individual case, but also a symbolic case. And I think that you can zero in on this perhaps as an example and as someone to view who has a problem as opposed to a laborer or a garbage collector or somebody else.
How do you feel about him? You put him on the cover of a national magazine. You spent a lot of time, obviously, working on the profile of him. Do you feel personally let down by him as this sort of image for other Americans to follow?
First of all, in all my years of covering sports, I've never had athletes as heroes, and I really don't think kids should have athletes as heroes. It's very hard to know what are you seeing on the ball field compared to what kind of person is he. As far as Harry Edwards talking about the Lawrence Taylor book, I can say that Lawrence Taylor, when I interviewed him, told me he would give me 10 minutes and told me he would not talk to me about drugs, that he would only speak about drugs in his book. That's why I have to believe that what he said in this book, which I'm sure had to be gone over by him on the galleys and okayed, has to be what happened. It has to be true.
Let's come back to the general problem for a moment, if we can, a couple of minutes. We have 9 suspensions out of how many players in the league?
1,600 or so when you get down to the
Harry
final
Edwards says the football, like everything else, is drawing from a pool of young people in a country that uses a lot of drugs. Does this mean the National Football League is clean compared to the rest of society? 9 out of 1,600?
If you look at the percentages, it seems that it's cleaner. And in fact, it might be, because most of the athletes are disciplined. Most of the athletes have a stake in staying relatively clean. Maybe in the and during the season anyway. Maybe for the general run of the population, the football population is cleaner than that of most any other.
Do you believe that?
Well, I have a question about the NFL drug testing policy. What I want to know is why more players did not test positive for steroids this year. Pete Rozelle came out at the beginning of training camps and said they were clamping down on steroids. I interviewed somebody recently with a 22-inch neck. This doesn't come from machines. I've talked to players. I know they're using a lot of steroids. I think that might be a bigger problem right now in the NFL than cocaine or pot.
How about that?
You may well be right, Jill, but
Yes,
the testing results on the steroids are not yet finished.
Mm-hmm.
That's a longer scientific...
But you're not deliberately blinding yourself to steroids.
No.
I mean, you are testing for them, but you just haven't completed the test.
That's
Is that
right.
right?
The drugs of abuse, cocaine, marijuana, and other things are tested first because they're easier to test for in the normal business context. XYZ Corporation down the street doesn't have to test for anabolic steroids because that's not a problem. So the laboratories are used to doing drugs of abuse, and we've had to take special pains with steroids because it's a new testing procedure.
But you think that may turn out to be a bigger problem?
I don't know. It's a different kind of problem. It involves competitive problems as well on the field.
I mean, in terms of numbers.
It may. I just don't know. We hope that, I'd like to think like Ira is thinking, that most of the players are clean. Too often we're jaded and we have our thinking colored by looking at all these bad
Do you have
cases.
a very brief comment, Harry Edwards, on whether
Yes.
the football is clean compared to the rest of the society?
I think it's probably reflective of the rest of the society and other occupations. Let me say one last
thing. You mean the
too.
percentage of drug abuse is higher than the 9 players suspended out of 1,600?
Well, the percentage of drug use as well as abuse. When you start talking about abuse, the guys who have a severe problem, that's one category, but the percentage of drug use, people who have used drugs, who use it informally, who use it casually over some extended period of time, I think it probably matches up with any other select group.
I'm afraid I have to interrupt you there because we've used up our time. Harry Edwards in San Francisco, John Van Duzer in New York, Jill Lieber, Ira Burko, thank you both.
They're pleased with his cooperation, and they're making progress, and they feel strongly that they've made a good start.
He was caught in '87, right? Can you give me any details about
Well,
that?
in 1987, when the league tested Smith-Kline, that he was, from that time, that was in, I guess, the end of July in 1987. From that time on, we tested him twice a week, every week of the season in 1987, and he was negative every time.
George, no rehabilitation, just your testing.
Well, after the the basis of the policy, first of all, is rehabilitation and testing. Now, Lawrence himself said that the testing kind of keeps him on the straight and narrow and gives you a structure to work with. When the season was over, we recommended aftercare, that this isn't going to solve the problem, that he has to do more, but we don't have complete control of the players in this sense. I mean, you know, you move to Houston or you move around the country, it's more difficult to deal with. And this is something that's being addressed more so by the league and by us. That we have to work on the off-season program and access to the players and for them to maintain this aftercare. But we recognize the need for aftercare, and that was suggested.
George, can't that be written into, or had you considered writing that into someone's contract?
Well, the problem with that, Bill, is that we're limited to the league policy. We don't have the right to make individual deals. If you're familiar at all, and I'm not an authority on it, baseball had some problems over that. But we don't have, because we have a CBA that is still in place, and we have certain restraints by the CBA and also by the arbitrator's decision, we really can't do that because we can't write anything in there that is superseded by the collective bargaining agreement. So we can't really do that independently because we would have a problem with the arbitrator.
Would that be a viable option, do you think, just in terms of your own?
Well, some people have discussed that. That's been discussed, but we can't do it unless the league and the players' union come to an agreement that we could do that. Because otherwise, we're limited by the arbitrator's decision, and that decision was based on his interpretation of the meaning of the CBA agreement in 1982. So I think it would be fruitless for us to write that in because I think it would be thrown out the first time there was an arbitration.
In '87, he was tested twice a week.
Yes.
How many times will he be tested now? How often?
Not less than.
For the rest
according,
of the season?
Yes.
Safe to say that you and the
And
other...
probably in the off season too. I mean, that was stated to him in the statement that came from the commissioner, I think, yesterday. Just to be safe, I made sure we weren't confused here. It says that the players will continue to receive appropriate counseling and treatment. Their reinstatement is conditioned upon these players totally refraining from any other further violations, but that includes testing.
It's pretty vague, though, isn't it?
Well,
Appropriate counseling?
Well,
who decides what's appropriate? Who gets results of the test first after a player tests positive, the league or the team?
The drug advisor gets it. The
Dr.
drug
Tennant?
advisor is responsible first. You are subject to continuous reasonable cause testing at any time, including the off seasons as appropriate. I mean, that was in the letter that went from the commissioner to those 5 players who were recently reinstated.
George, who conducts these tests now?
The drug advisor,
From the institution? From the institution?
Dr. Tennant approves of whomever he selected, but most of the testing is analyzed in California, where Dr. Tennant resides and where his institution is. And we've tried to do it that way because some laboratories aren't sophisticated enough to deal with some of these problems. So we've gotten the best sophisticated equipment available.
George, Keith Hernandez once had the doorbell rang at 3 a.m. in the morning, the first year after his testimony in Pittsburgh. Does something like that happen in the off season?
Well, I don't think we're not in the business of harassing the players. I don't think that would be our intent. I've never heard that ever come up before. I can't imagine that being done.
He passed, but he wasn't happy, you know.
Well, I've told people this before, that we're not interested in harassing the players. And I'd be opposed to anything like that and would be vocal about it. I mean, the first thing is these fellows are, you know, somebody else's child and somebody else's husband, and they're human beings. And I think that regardless, we have to always remember that, and I think we get carried away too much emotionally with events.
George, outside of the statement that Lawrence read this morning, we really haven't heard much from him. Did he indicate or has indicated that he might be on the road back, that he's positive about his
His behavior really has been fine, and he has given us every indication, and I'm not just mouthing this kind of stuff, that he has given us every indication that he's realized that he can't do it by himself. That was the problem we had before, where you know, you're back into the Superman uniform, where you as a person, and any of you out there who are very strong-headed or similar to this and think you can do it by yourself, and finally, when something hits you in the face like that, you realize that you can't do it by yourself. And we're convinced that Lawrence feels that way right now and has felt that since this all came down. And we're not trying to, you know, rationalize or anything like that. He's given us every indication that he's realized that he can't get it done, and that the therapist feels that Lawrence is in that mental mode.
George, do you think the public is putting pressure on professional sports to solve a problem that society has had problem solving themselves?
Well, it's difficult to say that, but I think that anybody in the public, you know, that's a celebrity in public is affected by their behavior, and public puts pressure on that. I sometimes think that we have this a little out of focus, that we're still attacking the wrong areas as far as society is concerned. The area to attack is the guy who sells it and the guy who imports it into the United States. I mean, too often we want to beat the addict over the head, and it's not the addict that's the problem. The problem is the people who are able to make money on it. But I think because the player or an athlete is a public figure, and whether any of us like it or whether the player himself likes it, he puts himself in a position of being a role model, and I think that adds pressure to him, and he's going to be put in that position by just being a public figure. You know, we'd only be paying him, you know, $50 or to $100 a week if they weren't in the public view. But when you are, you get paid more, and therefore you accept more responsibility, whether you think you should or not.
Safe to say that you're frustrated by the recurrence here, and also the inability to perhaps deal with the problem once and for all, or on a little tougher basis?
All of us in this room have certain problems that we can't overcome right away. I mean, anybody who smokes cigarettes or drinks or does things like that, or eats too much, we all face all those problems, and we'd like to eliminate all wrongdoing as best we can, but I think as human beings we have to offer a hand of help to those people who have problems and want to help themselves. I mean, we have to do that. I mean, you know, if you're a responsible adult, I think that you have to do this. I think we forget it. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your attention. Yeah.